to what may be considered to be spiritual. Meditation is related to spiritual, meaning it's not material. It's a process of going beyond thinking, transcending thinking.
Hi, my name is Yana. Thank you for watching. This episode starts with an audio introduction and continues with the video content. So remember to watch it until the end. And subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, share with friends. Thank you for being here and listening to Timeless Teachings. Welcome to the world of consciousness, human development, and full potential. Here we have conversations with people from all over the world about the subjects that matter for our mind, body, and soul, so that you can create a truly spectacular life. Inhale, exhale, and let's begin. This is Timeless Teachings, a global podcast with yanafry. Have you ever asked yourself, what are you going to take with you when you die? Yes, it is a provocative question, yet it is an inevitable event that will happen in the life of each human being with no exceptions. If we cannot avoid it, how about we prepare for it the best way we know how? Transcendental meditation is something you can actually take with you, says our guest today, Jim Bagnola. In this interview, we dive deeply into why, how it works, and who it is for. Jim, thank you very much for joining us today at Timeless Teachings Podcast. And it is the second time you're joining the show. So for those who missed Jim's first interview, it is episode 13, How Meditation Can Reduce Crime, Increase Happiness, and Strengthen Leadership. So go ahead and listen to that. And today we're here to talk about Transcendental Meditation. So let's just go straight into it. And my first question to you would be, what is Transcendental Meditation?
Very good first question. And thank you for having me again, Yana. I appreciate it. It's a simple, natural technique where we close our eyes, sit comfortably, 20 minutes twice a day, and allow the body to settle down to a very deep state of rest, actually, in a lot of cases, deeper than deep sleep. And at the same time, the brain creates within itself a very coherent state. Normally, if people look at the EEG, the electroencephalograph, meaning we're looking at how the brain is firing, it's firing as if you were listening to a concert orchestra warming up. We think like 60,000 thoughts in a day, over 1 million words in a day, and the mind wants to rest, and we don't give it time. And when we meditate, it allows the mind-body to settle and the brain to become very coherent, as if the conductor raises the baton and now the orchestra plays in unison. The same thing happens to the brain when we meditate. So two things. One, we're getting rid of stress and fatigue in the body during meditation, and we're expanding the mind during meditation. Both of those cycles are happening naturally, easily, and you just began to meditate 1 month ago. You tell me how is it about a month?
Yeah, well, for specifically TM practice, yes. I mean, I've been meditating since I was 8 years old, but for TM, it was about a month ago, which I learned when I was visiting the Vedic city, and I was seeing all of you guys, which was wonderful.
Wonderful to have you.
I'm keeping it twice a day, and I can definitely see the benefits myself. Exactly what you were saying, and that's why I also wanted for you to share today, for people who may be hearing for the first time, what is Transcendental Meditation? Who is it for?
even small children, age 5 and 6, start to meditate. And so it's from early childhood to my parents were meditating in their 90s. I've been a certified teacher since 1975, and I got to teach them to meditate, and they were clear thinking all the way to the end of their life. So it's for everyone and anyone. As long as you can think a thought, you can practice TM. You know how easy it is. It's easy and it's simple. A lot of meditations talk about how difficult they are, and they're proud of it. You have to work on this. The first line of a meditation book that I read, you are about to begin a very difficult practice. Well, TM is the opposite. It's the opposite of this. Science tells us there are 3 kinds of meditation. Mm-hmm. One is called focused attention, where we are concentrating on something, focused. Another one is called open monitoring, where we're watching and observing breath, thoughts, sensations in the body. And then the last one, which the category is where TM falls, is called automatic self-transcending. It happens automatically, it happens naturally, happens easily without effort. So if we use an analogy, the mind is like an ocean. On the surface of the ocean, it is churning and sometimes, hurricane winds, and it's rough. If you're in a boat, I've been in a boat doing that. It's scary. But at the depths of the ocean, it's still quiet. It's silent. The mind is like that. On the surface, it's very active. But as we transcend, and that's what the words mean, transcendental means to go beyond, and meditation, the thinking process. I remember a lady asked me, excuse me, what does this have to do to the trance during the dental? It has nothing to do with dentistry, and it's not a trance, and meditation is thinking process. So it's going beyond it to the source of thinking. And then those 2 things take place. Stress is being released, and we're expanding the mind. One or the other is always happening. And if we make effort and concentrate and control the mind, it stays on the surface of the mind. We're just playing on the surface. When we begin to use a mantra, which everyone learns, in fact, everyone learns one-on-one with the teacher. And then there are 3 more days of about an hour and a half, 2 hours, where you spend together with the group if a group started. So it's learned in 4 days. It's not learned in a book. It's not a public kind of meditation where you read it in a book and do it. No, you need a certified teacher. And they teach you 2 things. One, they select a mantra for you. And the second thing is how to use that mantra properly, which is more important than the mantra itself. What's the mantra? How do I use it properly? And a mantra means sound, no meaning. If it had meaning, then we're stuck at the conscious level again. We want to give the mind the opportunity to rest finally, to expand, to increase its capacity.
I'm going to ask a difficult question now.
Oh, no. Please.
When we use the word mantra,
Mm-hmm.
it often creates association in people's mind with Hinduism. Because
Yes.
historically, right, so mantras come from Hindu culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just asking on behalf of all those people who identify themselves with being Christians or Muslims or atheists or scientists, what is mantra, right?
This is a great question.
So what do we say to them?
So, a very good question. Mantra means sound, and those sounds come from a 6,000-year tradition called Vedic tradition. It was a kind of time of existence and a way of life. It wasn't any ism. You don't need to have an ism to meditate. you can be an atheist to Christian to whatever. We have Catholic priests, rabbis, Muslims. The whole gamut is meditating. So it has no belief. You don't even have to believe that it'll work. All you have to do is follow the instructions and it works. So there's no belief attached to it. It's not a psychological program. It's a psychophysiological program. Both body and mind are involved in it. And these sounds have no meaning. Their effect is known through science. When we watch a person begin to meditate, with one of the sounds, the brain starts to get coherent right away, immediately. When we use other sounds, it goes the opposite direction.
And I remember when I was in Iowa, right? I mean, visiting again, all of you, I had a conversation with Dr. Fred Travis, and he explained at great lengths also to me the work that they do and how they study the brain waves and the effect actually it has on people over the years when they stay with the meditation, just to your point.
And, this is a fourth state of consciousness, completely different than the ones we've always known. Waking has a certain physiology and brain function. Dreaming, same thing. Deep sleep, same thing. So if you were hooked up to EEG, the electroencephalograph, and Fred was in another room, he could say, you are now sleeping. Now you're dreaming. Now you're awake. Now you're meditating, because this is called a hypometabolic state. Your metabolism is very low, deeper than sleep, yet you're completely alert. You know what's going on around you. You can hear sounds, you hear people talking in the distance, you could hear music playing. It's a fourth state of consciousness. And this hypometabolic state means restful alertness, a coexistence of opposites. Resting, but alert. Usually if we're resting, we're getting more and more dull until we become completely dull. And that fourth state is the most coherent state that we can achieve when we meditate. And we can see, I was part of a study where just before, actually, it was just after I started thinking a thought during meditation, you had to press a button. And so they looked at just before you realized you had a thought in meditation, and it was the most coherent state. And the depth of rest of the body was the deepest. So we were capable of doing that coherent brain configuration and releasing the thing that causes us our problems, stress. Surface stress is called fatigue, but we have had things happen to us in our life, all of us, that are damaging, and they're deep stresses. Sleep does not allow us to reach those deep stresses. We need the same depth and level of rest to actually get rid of the same depth and level of stress. These have impressions in the brain, but also maybe a tightened muscle in the body, maybe overacidic stomach, maybe high blood pressure, maybe migraine headaches attached to this stress. All those things start to be released when you begin to meditate using sounds which are not related to any religion, but to a Vedic tradition. The key is that TM replaces nothing. It doesn't replace religion, prayer, exercise, sleep, any philosophy that you have, any diet that you have. It doesn't replace any of that. What it does is augments it, meaning it creates more coherence in the brain. If you're stressed, your CEO of the brain, your frontal cortex, goes offline. Your IQ can drop 40 points if you're angry, upset, stressed. IQ drops because when you enter what is called the sympathetic nervous system, it alerts the body that I'm being threatened somehow. And it shuts off the blood from the cortex, and the amygdala, it's called amygdala hijacking, hijacks all the energy and sends it to your arms to fight and your legs to run. And you're not in a very intelligent place. You're not in a very good place to make a good decision, to plan well, or to live life properly. So the key is to do a simple technology which orders the brain function. It actually lights up the cortex. And it settles, in fact, is the complete opposite of the fight or flight response. Opposite. So those two things are important that happen using the proper sound, which comes from a tradition, not a religion. It's not Hinduism. Hinduism came after the Vedic civilization. So great question.
You also mentioned something very important when you were talking about stress. And I remember hearing from meditators the term unstressing, right? So that happens when they meditate. And I also have seen it, like even with some people. I definitely have experienced it myself. So can you tell us a little bit more about what is unstressing?
You know, it's if you have a muscle that's tied up in tension, if you rest enough, it unravels. And somebody said, well, where did the stress go? Well, it unraveled and left. Now there are chemicals that are created. The hormone cortisol is a stress hormone. And it is created when we are threatened. If we have too much cortisol, that cortisol can do damage to brain, to bone structure, to everything in the body. It's toxic. And then when we're stressed, there's a cocktail of these hormones that attack the nervous system if they're there too long. If you step off the curb and you didn't realize a car was coming, you need cortisol. But you only need it for a second or two. You're out of the way, it should stop. But people keep pushing this button all day long. And so the body becomes full of these chemicals that are toxic, and they themselves stress the nervous system. So this unraveling of stress, or for soldiers coming back from the war with PTSD, the NIH, National Institutes of Health in the US, paid millions of dollars to do research on them coming back and meditating, and how this unraveled that stress in their psychology, because it's connected to the physiology. The mind-body is one, it's not separate. So it can be dissolved in many ways. Unraveling of muscular parts of the body, chemicals being rebalanced, like if your stomach is over acidic, a chemical goes and neutralizes it. This is a release. And when we release the mental parts of the stress, the body also releases itself. So it's connected. The mind is connected to the body. So if I have a stress about, even if it's a positive, I won the lottery, but it almost, oh my God, I won the lottery. That's even a stress. It's kind of overpowering and overbearing, and it leaves a mark. And we all have marks from our whole life, mark after mark after mark. The good thing is they are not they're not infinite, they're finite. And all we have to do is use a technique to get rid of them. That is like a lever. 10 people can't move this boulder, but if somebody comes along with the lever, whoop, and meditation is like the lever. that has, as you mentioned, you talked to Dr. Travis, there are 420 different peer-reviewed studies. That's probably more than that. They keep increasing. And that means they were subjected to experts in their field. And the experts criticized how the scientific method was used, how it was done. And if they see they need corrections, then the scientists have to correct. They put it back in to be reviewed. And finally, it's published when all of the experts say it's ready. We can do that. Everybody starts. Go ahead. I felt a question. I felt a question coming.
Yes. Actually, what I remembered also my conversation with Olga, my TM teacher at the Vedic City, and she also mentioned, and I'm saying it with all respect for therapy and psychotherapy. I just want to be very clear about it. Mm-hmm. However, that meditation is another wonderful tool that helps to deal with traumas. Yes. Without actually needing to talk it out. Mm. And so I remember she definitely shared, and I also heard it from some other people who have been meditating for a very long time. And you also mentioned PTSD syndromes, right?
Yeah, yes.
That just the fact that the person becomes committed to regular meditation, and here with TM specifically, we are talking about twice a day, 20 minutes. That's kind of the beginning level, right? For people who start meditating. And on top of everything that you shared, it also helps to heal whatever happened in the past.
Yes, it does.
Psychologically, and perhaps still holding a person back from realizing his or her full potential.
Yes.
And again, I'm just saying it, understanding the value of all other modalities, but just sharing it with people here that there are also other ways. And not everyone wants to talk about everything all the time. And meditation is one of those tools that helps you to process, especially the past, in a very congruent, private, aligned way. It's just you and you, right? Because I remember the conversation with you, Jim, you were telling me that TM, it's, how did you put it? You said it is transcending by the self, for the self.
For the self, and with the self.
And with the self, exactly. So transcending by the self, for the self, and with the self.
Yes.
So it is like you, and you, just different parts of you. You could say the smaller S, the bigger S, right? Smaller self, bigger self. Fundamentally, I think also the difference in this particular practice, and it's just in my own understanding, seeing many schools over the years and studying many schools over the years, especially traditional schools, very often they linked directly to one particular teacher that you always have to bring in mind when you do a certain practice. I mean, most of traditional schools anchored in that. And so interesting what is about TM, even though Maharishi is the founder, right? So, and he's the one who developed the system and make it accessible to people like you and me. At the same time, he kind of took himself out of the equation. And he was like, hey, here's the tool. It works. We have done, I think realistically, it's already now about 50, 60 years of scientific research, right?
Correct. Yes.
It's many years. It's not just yesterday. So it's many, many years of research and it works. We have proven it. We tried it all over the world. We tried it in cultures all over the world and it works. And it's also what you said, it works with people of any background, any experience in meditation or personal development or spirituality or well-being, whatever you call that. And it's by the self, for the self, and with the self.
That's it. It's self-sufficiency. It's self-sufficiency.
Exactly.
And that's a great teacher, to give you something that you can use on your own for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter who's listening to this or what country you're from, you can go to tm.org, and up in the left-hand corner, it says country. Click on the country, and then you'll see all these countries. About 10 million people have learned to meditate, learned transcendental meditation. And you will find centers around the world where you can learn from a certified teacher. And that's where the certified teachers are, in the centers, like Olga for you.
Yes.
The thing about psychology, it's so connected to physiology that if we can get a deep enough rest, like the students at Maharishi International University, where I'm a adjunct professor, and you listened in on our classes, they meditate twice a day right in class, right before lunch and then at the end of class. And then before they come in, they meditate in their rooms on their own. Well, one of the most important studies for me, it was a 2-year study, and the students, usually when they're tested with Stanford Binet or some of the others checking the IQ, you usually are about the same throughout your life. Well, in 2 years, they went from here to here. All of them became more intelligent, measured by these IQ ratings, while they were learning factual information and knowledge. Meaning, your capacity is becoming greater and greater as you release stress that is inhibiting the use of your full potential. And, I've told you, everybody's starting for a different reason. I was interested in self-actualization when I was a freshman in college. And, and I asked, how do I get that thing? And Professor Popplestone said, only 2% get it, and they're geniuses. And Jim, you're not a genius. You're not an Einstein. Well, when I looked at the research of TM, what it says is anybody starting from any level of consciousness can achieve full potential. It just is a matter of how much stress is in your physiology. And sooner or later, you're going to release all that stress. You will catch up. If we're smart, we don't keep adding stress. So the first thing is intelligence growth rate. And the second thing is that there's something called the personal orientation inventory. And that measures how self-realized you are. And TM stands up to 42 different programs of meditation or self-development. It measures 4 times greater in having self-realized people who are releasing these blocks. These blocks are stress. And they're also blocking health. They're creating a lot of health problems. Stress wears down the nervous system. So we've had studies on insurance, how people who meditate, they get a break in insurance because they just don't get sick as much. They're releasing the stress which causes the disease. So mind is affected, health is affected, then relationships. Usually the stress in relationships is due to fatigue. People are just burnt out. And if one person isn't meditating or getting rest every day, they're going to clash. And then we have our relationships get hurt. And then this phrase, I've said myself, I'm sorry, I'm not myself today. Big S or small s, self. I'm just not myself. And so there's such a practical level to what may be considered to be spiritual. Meditation is related to spiritual, meaning it's not material. It's a process of going beyond thinking, transcending thinking. And so people might think, if it's spiritual, it's got to be serious. It's got to be hard. It's got to be rough. I got to put you through all kinds of stuff for you to get to where you want to go. No, that's not Vedic tradition, which is older than all traditions have come from it. And so the oldest tradition says, take it easy. Do something simple. Transcending is part of your life. Everybody has the ability to settle down to those silent parts of the brain and mind. We have the ability, but we don't set up the right situation. What meditation is setting up the right circumstances to allow the mind to do what it wants to do anyway. So it works by the very nature of itself. So for instance, if you, I don't know exactly what kind of music you like, probably lots of different kinds, but you might be kind of resting and your eyes closed and some music is coming from your stepson's room. And your mind is not going there. You do not like whatever music is coming from that room. Your husband puts on some music and it's so charming that where's your mind going to go? It naturally goes over here to this music that you really enjoy. Now we could switch that too. Your stepson might have the good music, but the mind goes to where it's most attracted. The biggest attraction is called the unified field of all the laws of nature. So gravity, strong and weak interaction, all the four levels of the electromagnetic field, all those levels collapse into one field called the unified field in physics. What they have shown is that's actually consciousness in the human being. The ground state is pure consciousness. And it's the same in all of us. We all are attracted to that. If the mind is allowed, it will go right there. It will be pulled there like a magnet. It's pulled to this level of the source of thought. We usually think about thinking, but we don't think, where's the source of thought? And the source of thought is pure consciousness. Everything arises from consciousness. One time I was hit behind the head. My father was playing baseball and it went over somebody's head, hit me behind the head, and I was knocked out, unconscious, totally out. And they were about to call the ambulance and I came to and saw all these faces looking down at me. And I was like, wow, where was I? And they said, you were out for almost 5 minutes and you were knocked out. So there's no consciousness. And then when I came to, I started to be more conscious of these faces and conscious of my thoughts. And then, where was I? What happened? You got hit in the head and you were knocked out. So there's a place where these thoughts come from. And thoughts are their energy, something moving in the system. Their intelligence, they have a focus and a purpose. And they're infinite. You hardly can turn them off when you go to bed. The thoughts keep rolling. And so that source of thought is infinite energy, creativity, and intelligence. So when we contact it, when the mind contacts it, it's infused into the conscious thinking mind. So when it comes out, it's fresh, more creative, more intelligent, more energetic. All the basic, really, qualities of consciousness are the basic qualities of life. So we're contacting that twice a day and infusing us with all of that, including becoming more self-realized in some language or self-actualized in scientific language. To me, it's enlightenment. It's using full potential. So Dr. Popplestone, you were wrong. You made a mistake.
I love that. I also like very much how you are sharing that TM practice is for both spiritual and practical people, right? This is a very important part. So for those who are listening to us or watching right now, whether you identify yourself with being this or that, right? Whether you think you're a seeker, you're on a spiritual journey, and you're looking for the self-actualization like Jim, so... Or
like you. Like
me, exactly, like me. Or whether you're thinking about yourself as more practical, right? A person who just wants to be just, right? Wants to be healthy and have better sleep and have more stable mind and be able to make decisions in stressful situations, the best possible decision. You want to have good relationship with people around you, which now as I'm listing all of this, I'm thinking we all want to have it anyway before self-actualization, right? So this is like a fundamental, just basic human right to be healthy, to be happy, to love, to be loved.
Totally.
To be successful, to be fulfilled. I mean, this is what life is about. And then for those who want to kind of go this extra mile a little bit and say, okay, I want to go all the way to the top, fine. It's also beautiful. And this is what TM offers. However, if you feel it's not for you in this lifetime and you're perfectly happy with, live the life you have already right now, you just want to enhance it, it's also wonderful. So whatever kind of angle you're coming at that, TM is a wonderful practice.
Maharishi actually said once, I came to the West and people are beginning to meditate because they want to sleep better. And the side effect is enlightenment.
That's a good one. Yes.
And I've taught thousands of people to meditate in almost 50 years. I've been meditating for over 50 years. And so people start for every reason. They're getting a divorce or they don't want a divorce and they're starting meditating to both come in to start meditating to see if they can salvage a relationship. People come in with health issues and it doesn't matter what the issue is. The side effect is self-actualization. It starts happening automatically because we're removing the blocks. The blocks are these stresses in the system, and they're both in psychology and physiology. And this is why you mentioned we have a lot of modalities to help us to heal. And when we meditate, if we release some of the physiological stress, sometimes the psychological stress goes right out with it. Sometimes we'll need to speak to someone about that and articulate what's happening. That I do that too. One of my jobs is coaching and counseling, so I can do that too. If people ask me, I'm happy to do it. The really important thing is that we're lighting up our brain, and without clear thinking, life cannot go well. And the stress system, our system is built to resist threat. If we're threatened, then we're going to go into the fight or flight response, fight, flight, or freeze, they call it. The amygdala is the central part of the brain responsible for it. Amygdala just means almond. It's an almond-shaped part of the brain. And it floods the body with this cocktail of toxic hormones, which we don't need. If the levels keep increasing, because all day we keep pushing it. I'm stressed, I'm threatened, and most of it is psychological threat, not physiological threat anymore. There's some, but most of it is psychological threat. So we need a way to get rid of that kind of stress. And that's why it's done morning before breakfast, usually, because remember, the metabolism is going to go down. So if we eat first, then we have indigestion. There's no digestion if we eat first, then meditate. So we meditate before breakfast and then before dinner. And why before dinner? We get rid of all the stresses of the day. Before we sit down, we have good appetite, good digestion. We can communicate well with our family. When we're stressed, we're not ourselves. We can't communicate well. We don't digest well. We don't have a good appetite. So the mind body needs some extra engine. And so it doesn't replace anything. It only augments the system's fine functioning. It's fine tuning its function.
Beautiful. So we have talked about what is TM, right? The benefits, the scientific explanation. Who is it for? How often do you do this? How do you learn? Which I just want to highlight here again, that you learn TM practice from certified teacher. So please do it that way. That's the purest way to receive any teaching, when you go directly to the source. And then all sort of effects it just has psychologically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, health-wise, neurologically. So everything, how it enhances our life. And all of that was on individual level, right? So it's I am and everything around me.
Even environmentally. From my last talk and your talk with Candace Badgett, which your fans will see, that it affects if a certain number.
That's my next question, exactly. So when we go into the collective, so perfect. Yes, tell us. So what happens when we start getting in groups?
Well, you love the concept of 200% of life. 100% material, we should be comfortable here. We should be successful. We should be able to serve and help people. That's why we're here. And then on the other hand, we should be evolving to our full potential in self-realization. So what stops us? Well, internal stress is one thing, but external stress is another thing. We have to collectively remove external stress. War, which is happening now, is just from a buildup of external stress, and then it unstresses. It's called a war. When the physiology of society unstresses, it's called a war. It built up so much, boom, it had to release somehow. So Candace spoke of the 8, I think, studies. I was part of 4 of them. In Jerusalem, in Washington, D.C., in India, in Fairfield, we had 8,000 people together and affected various things. So the amazing thing in Israel, when we were there and we could hear bombs dropping on the border, the Lebanese war. But every time we had the square root of 1% of the population meditating, the scientists saw the misery index go down. People, who were reporting negative kinds of news articles, they went down. People getting admitted into hospital, down. Crime rate fell. Every single time, whether it was a weekend or a week, or when it was vacation time, 2 weeks, everything dropped when we had a certain number there. Good. And I mentioned this in my other talk about Washington, D.C. It was like a miracle. It was summertime, and they said nothing will drop the crime rate unless we get a snow blizzard. A blizzard. You don't get snow in July and August, and that's when it was. Yet, those 4,000 people dropped the crime by 24%. And they were blown away. People were blown away because scientists who didn't meditate were monitoring some of these elements, which are called the misery index. And so the group can affect the whole of society and help individuals live 200% of life. We should have full material and full spiritual fulfillment. This is what life is about. And that's, I think, at least in my life, that's when I'm happiest, when there's 200% of life and whatever that activity is. I call it the soul line and the goal line. If both of them are met, I'm in bliss. I can't be any happier than that. And that's the purpose of life.
And that's also Yes, and that's also what I felt that actually practical spirituality is about, right? So in a traditional way, spirituality has been historically removing yourself from the society.
Right.
Again, I'm saying it with respect for all traditional schools, and I know many, and I know teachers from there, and that's their life. However, they're usually born into this life.
Yes.
So like if you're born to be a nun or monk or yogi, or like if you're literally born into this, then that becomes your path. However, for people like us who are born in the society, and I have seen it all over the world. I mean, I have seen it in everywhere in Europe and in the US and in Bali, in India, like in all kind of places, in Russia, Ukraine, and all kind of places where people like us who are born into the society become seekers like we did, and often inevitably go through this patch in their life when start embracing those very traditional practices who are meant for people who come from that particular culture, and as a result start disengaging from the society. And I definitely went through the stage several times. In fact, I think several times I wanted to go and live at the monastery and leave my family. And my husband was like, well, let's talk about that. and also, I mean, I have seen people around me. Many of them are still in that stage at the moment. And I'm here speaking from my personal experience and also from observing people, many people all over the world. And I guess this is my message for those who think about themselves as spiritual seekers. That your dharma, your purpose, your life's work is always in the society, if you're born in the society. So there are, monks, yes, we honor them, we support them when they meditate for all of us. But again, they are born into this life. And I think there is something about that for the ego to accept it, that you are given certain circumstances, like your soul, right, have chosen certain paths here, and so you come. It's like when you play cards, you have a certain deck that is given to you, and this is what you have. And what you do, you learn to make the best out of it. And especially for people who are on a spiritual journey, I found it has a lot to do with our ego. It's what we say, right? There's a practical ego, there's a material ego, and then absolutely there's a spiritual ego. And when we transition from the material world into the spiritual world, and there is this moment when ego, and again, I definitely have been there myself, like everyone else, when the ego goes, well, now I can become the enlightened one. I all that I can do, I can just go somewhere very far and meditate on the behalf of the society, which is a wonderful practice if this is your life path. For most of us, it is not. The life path is to be here, to deal with your spouse, to deal with your children, to deal with your parents, with your grandparents, with your annoying neighbors. They might with the coworkers who might constantly test your nerves every time when you try to do something, with your investors, with your business partners, with the government, So, and which is in general how the society is created. This is the Dharma path. And I think also a big part of, in general, meditation practice, with particular TM, and I think you and I spoke about it, it actually helps you to be more integrated in the society. It doesn't space you out like some other practices do, right? And it's like when you start doing something and then suddenly you are no longer able to function within the family structure or within the work structure. Money, what is money? Relationship, what is relationship? Who needs relationships? And again, and I found it always, it's a very dangerous place to be in. Because most of us do stay in the society, and we need relationship with people because this is how we built everything. We need money because we still live in a material environment. It would be silly to think we don't. And it applies to all other practicality around us. We need that. And so the beauty about TM that we can create all of this within the society while realizing ourselves fully. How cool is that, right?
The definition, there are there are as many definitions of enlightenment as there are people. The definition that I feel is most practical is it was made by a physiologist, a physicist, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And the definition is the ultimate development of what we ordinarily consider to be the most valuable qualities of human life. And it's open to anyone starting from any level of consciousness. And so this ultimate development of these qualities of life are what makes life enjoyable, happy. Only 2% of the world are monks, 2%. And then they have a lot of wild ideas about how to handle themselves, which, is their tradition. They will do it. They're born into it. And for us householders, it means we hold a house where we're in society. We need to sharpen all those qualities and values to be of service to other people. That's our rent that we pay to stay on the planet.
In the society.
Yes, in society. Yeah. I've seen there's an island in Greece with 2,000 monks on it. Women are not allowed there. It's Orthodox Christian place. And the monks are fantastic. But that's their dharma. That's their way of life. And they like it. They enjoy. And if they're happy, who cares? Great. Keep doing it. But that's 2,000 people out of millions of people in Greece. And so there's a small percentage of the world. And that when Maharishi came out of his silence to help the world, that was one of the things he said, exactly what you said. We're holding these techniques in the monk's way of life, and all the other people are not getting the benefit of Vedic knowledge and tradition. So let's open it up. And as you saw very clearly when you visited Maharishi International University, it's kind of spirituality and science crossing.
Yes.
You said it. It was you observed it. Oh, this is science commingling with spirituality. And that's life. We have a soul and we have a body. The body is material, the soul is spiritual. and therefore there's the goal line for the body and material, and there's the soul line. How am I developing while I'm achieving all these things in the relative existence? What am I going to take with me? Because I can't take anything material with me. I can only take consciousness with me. So I may as well develop that. And I remember this Jewish rabbi came, and he had just meditated, and he gave a talk, and it was entitled TM, You Can Take It With You.
That's a great title for the interview. I like it.
You can take it with you.
Yeah, you can take it with you.
You can take. So all those values that you now have, the ultimate development of generosity, the ultimate development of service, of graciousness, of grace, of, all these things, they're going with you. Those are spiritual, non-material. They're in consciousness. So they go with you. Everything else, I'm sorry to say, you mean my Prius is not going with me? Oh, no. I love my car. It's not going. It's not going. Wait a minute. My house? No, not going. But everything else is going that's spiritual. So it's for me, it's the best thing I could give anyone in this lifetime. If I could introduce them to a way to transcend and infuse their mind body with consciousness until all stress is gone. then this is the gift I would give to somebody I love.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you for joining us today. It was a wonderful conversation. And of course, we will share all the links and the way to contact you for people. And I think even if I were not initiated in TM yet, after listening to you talking about it so passionately and so clearly for this time, I definitely would have gone right away to the website, found a center in my city and went to meditate like today because of just what you explained. It's not only for the individual, it's also for everyone who is around that particular individual, which usually is our immediate family, our immediate circle of friends, and our people we are professionally connected with. And at the same time, then it expands to our society. And that's, I know, especially among millennials, I have heard there is a bit of an anxiety where the society is heading to. There is an eco-anxiety, there is cultural anxiety, there is spiritual anxiety, right? So people, like especially younger people, almost feel hopeless looking at the state of the current world affairs, and they don't know what to do. And I know, in fact, from some of my friends, that's also one of the reasons why they don't want to have children, or they are waiting to have children, just because they don't trust the society we are living in right now to bring a child here.
Yes.
And so for all our sort of younger audience, right, who is listening or watching right now, meditation, as you can see, is a really great way how you can contribute, not only for yourself and for your own life, but also for the society to just make it a much, much better place for all of us. So, Jim, once again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, Yana.
And for everyone, thank you for listening to Timeless Teachings. We are going to be back with another guest.
Thank you.
A gentle reminder that this is not a regular podcast, because here we have no rules and no scripted questions. All conversations are spontaneous, unfiltered, and deep with people from all over the world, regardless of their race, religion, nationality, language, or other circumstances. These people are teachers, experts, coaches, leaders, and influencers who are all simply ordinary human beings doing their thing. The intention of this podcast is to showcase the infinite variety of how human beings think and what they do to create happiness, fulfillment, realization, health, wealth, bliss, and overall a truly spectacular life. Did you enjoy the interview? Feel free to share this episode with friends, subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And remember, you are a spectacular human being.